morning and welcome to our 2021 Virtual County Finance School. This is our 55th County Finance School, and we appreciate everybody joining us this morning for today's program, which is What's New in Banking Merchant Services, Card Acceptance Trends in the Public Sector. Before we begin, we'd like to recognize the State Comptroller's Office and the Honorable Tom DiNapoli and his staff for partnering with NYSAC again over many years and decades for this training event. OSC provides not only many topics of our finance school, but also coordinates the CP credits that are granted for webinar participation. Thank you to OSC under the leadership of Dan Aquilano, who has worked closely with NYSAC to develop the current program and past programs. I'm going to turn over to Jeanette for a few housekeeping things, and then we'll get to our speakers.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. Just a couple of notes before we begin. We will be recording this program and posting the recording with a PDF of the slide deck on the NYSAC website. All you have to do is go to the Education tab and then choose from the drop-down box Webinars. Everything should be posted by 1 o'clock today. Also, you will find not only on the website later today, but also on your dashboard under the Chat tab. If you click on that, it will drop down and show you that there's also a document that you can directly download right now for your CPE credits. That will also be posted again on the website. We also encourage you to submit questions, which will be covered during the Q&A at the end of the program. We ask you to submit those questions in writing, and the way you do that is by clicking from your dashboard the Questions tab. Just type in your questions and it will be sent to us, and then we will go through all questions live at the end of the program. Thanks for joining us today, and back to Dave.
Thank you, Jeanette. Today we're joined by three of our partners from KeyBank, and I'll do a brief bio for each, or introduction, and I'll turn it back over to the KeyBank team. First, we have Brendan Baxter. He's a relationship manager for the KeyBank Public Sector Group based in the Northeast. Brendan joined Key in 2013 and has worked with state and local governments, school districts, and authorities across the region. Brendan provides innovative solutions to clients in both general banking services and municipal banking, investment banking, and has been involved in both taxable and tax-exempt transactions to large and mid-sized issuers. Prior to joining Key, Brendan worked for Bolton St. John's right here in Albany. He lobbied for a wide array of clients in many different fields, including major universities, hospitals, not-for-profits, unions, and international corporations. At this time, Brendan played a role in the adoption of several laws in New York, including the 2011 Marriage Equality Act and the 2013 Neighborhood Speeds for Neighborhood Streets Act. And our second person or speaker will be Robert Gagwer. He's Vice President and Senior Payment Advisor at KeyBank, and he's dedicated to public sector for KeyBank with a focus in merchant services and electronic receivables. He's been in the merchant treasury industry for more than 15 years, guiding a wide range of organizations from Fortune 500 companies to complex large government entities. Robert is well-versed in deploying omni-channel strategies to help clients meet their customers in a variety of new technologies while implementing practices to keep the dollars and data coupled through the receivables process. He has in-depth experience interpreting the effects of Visa and MasterCard interchange rules and regulations on each client, fraud mitigation, and PCI compliance and focus while deploying new strategies. And finally, we have Amanda Earnshaw, Vice President, Senior Payments Advisor, Enterprise Payments for KeyBank. Amanda is a Senior Payments Advisor covering the state of New York. She works with clients that tailors cash management solutions. For Key's cash management solutions provide the most beneficial results. Amanda spent the last 10 years working closely with the state of New York and has a clear understanding of the industry and the unique challenges municipalities face. Amanda has more than 18 years experience with KeyBank. And at this time, I'm going to turn it back over to Brendan to get the presentation started. Thank you.
Thank you, Dave, and to NYSAC for having us on. It's been sad not to be together in Syracuse the last 2 years due to the pandemic, so we really appreciate the opportunity to speak with everyone, at least virtually, and we hope to be back together in Syracuse next year. So again, thank you all very much. As Dave mentioned, my name is Brendan Baxter, and I'm a relationship manager with KeyBank's public sector group. I work with counties, cities, and other large municipalities across New York, including likely several of you on the call today. Joining me are the two people I work directly with on New York municipal clients: Amanda Earnshaw, who's our senior payments advisor for all core banking products and services, and Rob Gagwer, who is our merchant services advisor, again, for all municipal clients in New York. For today, what we wanted to talk to you about is, two of the most frequent questions we get asked the most in our conversations with municipal entities across the state is, what can I do to be more efficient? And what can I do to save money and lower costs for my day-to-day operations? I would bet that in our meetings, we hear these questions, 80 or 90% of the time. And the answer to both of these questions is the same: payment modernization via electronic solutions. For so long, governments had operated in a heavy paper, manual processes environment. Thousands of checks going out, people coming into your offices to make cash payments, a lot of mail coming into the offices, things like that. Over the last few years, however, there has been a movement to more electronic solutions. With the pandemic and over the last 15 months, we have seen these trends accelerated. As you all know, I'm not saying anything that none of you don't already know, the pandemic forced governments to close offices and reduce services and worker hours. I think, starting back in mid-March last year, people were shutting down, and just now our offices beginning to open back up and start to return to more normal operations. Next. Government regulation and the closure of markets and offices due to the stay safe, stay home practices that were first instituted last March and April really created a unique situation for the public sector. Providers, municipalities are looking for ways to serve their marketplaces virtually or in a contactless environment. The landscape and how you engage with your constituents has changed, leaving municipalities and agencies scrambling to determine how easy is it for me to get paid? How do I collect taxes? How do I collect registration fees, fines, payments, and all the other transactions that were largely cash and check? These transactions needed workers in the office to complete, needed offices to be open so constituents could come in and out, that sort of thing. And these are all questions that municipalities across the state have had to answer. Next. The main changes we've seen over the last year are, disruption in process flows. If previously you had 4 people in your account receivables department in the office every day doing that, and now you're in a 25% work environment, how do you continue your process flows? We've seen an impact on the availability of cash and cash-based payment services. If you have somebody working, the counter, the window to accept cash payments, and now that window is closed, how do you adjust for that? We've seen, as a result, an increase in demand for digital payments. Constituents are looking to pay online, they're looking to pay virtually, they need other options. There's potential disruptions to the functioning of payment and settlement systems if the timing is off due to county's accounts receivable process. We've seen operational risk due to the unavailability of critical staff, including critical service providers, doing more with less. Again, I don't need to tell anybody on the call that if you're operating at 25% of your normal staff, it's a lot harder to get things done. Things take longer. And then what we're seeing is, as constituents want to pay more electronically, we've seen system capacity constraints due to a surge in digital payments, along with heightened IT and cybersecurity risks. If a county has outdated software or a system built for only a few transactions, this has caused a real problem. So, as a result, we've seen a lot of public institutions try to be proactive during COVID to mitigate risks to payment systems and services to support the economic activity and to help their constituents. Public institutions can improve acceptance by focusing on two main areas. Where do they meet their customers, both consumer and business, how they want, when they want. So how do you help make payments to vendors, and how do you accept payments from your constituents for their various fees and services? And then the second thing is adopting electronic payments across all channels to avoid any delays in getting paid, to continue the wheels of government working for your constituents. You know, they rely on the services even in a pandemic. So, and we can go next here. You know, in order to modernize, municipal entities across the state have really started to utilize several new technologies that my colleague Amanda Earnshaw will now talk to you about. So thank you all again. Thank you, Dave and NISAC, and Amanda will now speak to you.
Thanks, Brendan. So we're going to focus on mostly the receivables process that Rob is going to walk through, but I did want to talk about some different ways to make payments and more efficient electronic ways to make payments, because the two really go hand in hand. If you have a very heavily based paper process to get payments out, but electronic process that's more automated, the two don't really go together unless you've got both aligned. So we want to talk high level about different ways to make payments that are more automated, that are more efficient. Some things new within the payments landscape that you may have heard of, may not have heard of. So we're just going to spend a few minutes to go over those at a very high level. The first being purchase card. Probably most of you have heard of a purchase card or a P card. And companies and clients use those to be more effective instead of sending out a check for payment or a wire for payment, or an ACH, because you have the ability to get a rebate on those payments you make. And also, purchase cards can fully integrate with your ERP system, so it gives you a holistic view about where you're spending and what you're spending. It also gives you great fraud protection and more of a automated way to make the payments and to reconcile your books. Secondly, AP automation is a way almost to outsource your payments. So it's a way for you to integrate your ERP system into making payments. So working with vendors to make the most out of your payment, having that outsourced company or bank work with the vendors to figure out how they want to be paid. So instead of you taking on that adoption role of who's going to take a check, who's going to take an ACH, who's going to take a wire, you can outsource that process, and the bank or company can work with your vendors to find out how they want to be paid, and then in turn, can you get a rebate back for that? It also will fully integrate with your ERP system. So like I said, you're seeing a more holistic view of those payments being made instead of really a siloed view of sending out a check and going through the paper process of purchase orders, invoices, a very manual paper approval process. Secondly, push to debit. So this is, I would think, an advanced version. Some of you may be familiar with prepaid cards. So companies or government agencies may use prepaid cards to make payments for various benefit programs. Push to debit allows payments to consumers on their own debit card or bank account. So again, an automated way to outsource those payments so you can make payments to your constituents and they get to choose. Do I want to get paid on my debit card that I already have? Do I want to get paid on my bank account? Or maybe they don't have either of those options and they can choose to get a check. So it's a great way to make payments out to them, potentially refund payments, where you're not managing that process and managing those bank accounts. and allowing the individual to choose how they want to get paid. Lastly, real-time payments. So something over the last couple of years that many banks have been involved with in embracing real-time payments. So how to pay individuals within seconds. So the payments landscape, a typical ACH payment, sometimes you're looking at, a 1 day or a 2 day effective date for somebody to get paid. So real-time payments gives you that option to make a payment in seconds. And some of the first adoption of this was payroll. So if somebody's worked overtime and you need to make a payment very quickly, real-time payments is an option. And we're seeing increased adoptions as payments need to be made in a quicker manner, especially in light of people not being able to come in to pick up a payroll check or any other check that they may need to get. So these are all, different versions of whether you're paying your vendors, whether you're paying individuals, constituents, automating that process, being more effective at getting a payment out, quicker at getting a payment out, also giving those individuals the option of how they want to be paid. That saves you both the time and the money of choosing how they should be paid. So these are different options on the payable side. Now I'm going to turn it over to Rob, who's going to focus more on the receivable side and focus on how the options that you would have to get paid.
Thanks, Amanda. Good morning, everybody. Good to be with you all. Appreciate the opportunity. As Amanda said, I'm going to cover the three questions focusing around receivables as well as merchant services. The three questions: how easy is it for me to get paid? The second one is, what is my online or electronic strategy? And the third, which Brendan mentioned at the beginning, the question we always get is, how can I reduce my costs around accepting electronic payments? So first and foremost, we all recognize that merchant services is really just another inflow. It's just another payment type for receivables. And so focusing on those three P's really is presentment, payment, and posting. The presentment: how are you notifying your constituents how much they owe you, whether it's an electronic invoice, whether it's a paper invoice where it's physically being printed, put in the traditional USPS mail, sent to the customer, or is it an email or a different electronic method for notification? But essentially, how are you presenting to your customer how much they owe in a form of a payment? The second P is the payment piece, and so the payment piece is the core, but it covers multiple things, such as payment type. Is it card? Is it credit card? Is it debit card? Is it prepaid card? Is it ACH? Is it electronic check? What is the payment type? And again, all of these can be on the same platform. And not only is it the same payment type, but what about the payment channel? So talking about the different channels, I'll expand on that over the next couple of slides. And then lastly, what good are the first two P's if the third one, posting, isn't just as efficient? If you can get your presentment out quickly and efficiently, and the constituent wants to receive that and make payment right away, that's fantastic. But if you don't have proper procedures in place to reconcile and to be able to post that just as quickly and as efficiently, then those first two pieces go for naught. So really, it's really taking into consideration the presentment, the payment, and then the posting to make your receivables process as efficient as possible. One of those ways in the automation process is the benefit is twofold. One is it's removing the paper out of the process, right? So if, as Amanda said, really talking about how are you managing your office from a paper perspective, even before the pandemic occurred, a lot of entities were moving towards less paper, because the more paper, the less efficient and the higher cost in moving those paper checks, or whether it's cash. No matter what the paper in heavy, intense paper in offices just equate to higher costs. So how do we get rid of that, right? And so by automating and taking some of that electronic, converting as much as possible to electronic payments. And one of the benefits then is, because you take the paper out, you won't risk losing the paper. You won't risk someone mistyping or miskeying information, because it's all machine to machine or automated process. And so you take that human error out of the process. And so then you have higher match rates, you have more efficient and quicker responses and moving that transaction through the receivables process. The other piece of that is being able to open up those additional channels, where I'm going to expand next slide, as I mentioned. But you're allowing your constituents to select which manner they prefer to pay through. And so by establishing multiple channels, you don't care. Your preference doesn't matter which way they pay you, except you prefer electronic over paper, so we can eliminate the paper and keep things automated as much as possible. And then offer the flexibility and improve the client experience, because they get to choose. And when you give your constituents the option, then they feel like they have more control, and it actually allows them to make payment quicker, because it's their preference and not your preference. Next, please. And so, talking about the omni-channel approach, expanding that, what would it look like if you would be able to open up all these different payment channels on a single platform? And so, rather than trying to manage multiple different terminals or gateways, solutions across the different departments of your county, what if everything was on a single platform and it was easy to manage a single highway? And when I refer to highway, it's just the automated integration to your ERP, where rather than trying to be an expert in managing each one of those across all departments, it's just one platform to manage. And so the point of sale is obviously a popular and probably most often what most folks offer. Or the second one is an online portal through a website, a hosted order page, something of that nature. But the different options, and Lockbox is also a very traditional option. But if you were able to actually send out a link for someone to pay, so if they call in and said, hey, I'd like to make a payment, where do I send the check? Rather than having them write out a check and put it in an envelope, put a stamp on it, and you're waiting, who knows, another 3 to 4 business days for the mail to arrive with that check, you could actually email them a link for them to make a payment through the portal, and you would have those funds available next business day. And so really, how do we reduce getting that payments in as quickly and as efficiently as possible? Again, payment types, referring back to the previous slide, the P in payments, digital wallets, being able to accept wallets online where they can store information electronically, being able to interact with digital payments, having an interactive voice response, so an IVR, where not only is it convenient for some folks to be able to call in just to a number and make a payment, but in a secure environment where PCI compliant, you could have either strictly IVR, or there's an option where someone within the office could answer the phone and then bring on the IVR and allow the customer to put in their credit card information or payment information in a secure manner, and the employee would never hear any of the touch tones or any of that nature. And so because of that, it's a fully secure PCI compliant solution, which reduces the overall scope that your county would be required to be compliant. And so again, just reducing cost by being mindful of introducing the proper setup of solutions on the front end. Another option is text to pay, and a lot of the younger generations are accustomed to text to pay. And if you in some crisis, you'll see text to pay as one of the highlights. For example, when Hurricane Katrina or Hurricane Sandy, any of those large ones, they always say, hey, Red Cross, text to pay $10. And so again, being able to set up how your constituents want to pay, we have those options available. And then through a mobile app or through an e-lock box as well. But really, however your constituents want to pay, we can enable those channels to allow those payments to come in quickly and efficiently. And so really, it's not that municipalities and public sector are the leading or cutting edge. It's really maintaining and staying up and just behind all the retail sector, because really they're pushing the bleeding edge. And so consumers get used to making payments in a certain manner. And so really, how can you be able to enable those channels? So again, when your constituents have found a way they like to pay and like to conduct business, how can you offer those same channels so they're already in that mode? And when you send them an invoice, they're already, okay, I can pay the way I like to pay, and really capitalize on their preferences already. Next, please. So really, this is talking about overall electronic strategy, and this is, I'll preface this comment by saying this would be utopia. And so how can we take each subsection and focus on each P of this process? So the presentment, the payment, or the posting. And so each county or municipality is going to be a little bit different in their preference and where they are through the whole receivables process. But this is what I refer to as a total receivables process. And so your ERP, your main accounting system, could generate invoices to be presented to the customer, and you would send over that full outstanding AR file, and you would send it to KeyBank, and then you would delineate between to KeyBank, should these be physically printed and mailed on your behalf, or should we present these on your behalf via electronic method such as email? And then those would arrive to the customer, and then your constituent then would take that and they would determine, how do I want to make this payment? Do I want to go to an online portal? Do I want to call an IVR? Do I want to walk in and make a payment in person? Do we want to set it up on automatic debit, or do in any other manner or channel? And so then when they make that payment, and then we can take all of those applications or all those payments, put it in a single file. We would fund all the dollars back into your preferred DDA, and then ultimately we can send back a file to be returned to your ERP system, and it could automatically match most of those transactions. So really, as I said, from a utopian perspective, it's fully capable, fully automated. It's 80% match, and so you're only working those 20% exceptions out of all of those transactions. And we can break that down and chunk it down into each one of those, the 3 Ps of receivables to best assist your county. Next, please. And this one, this is just a little bit more trimming it down specific to the payment piece. And so really it's focusing on the payment, the 3 Ps, right? So it's the payment, it's the presentment, it's the payment, and then also obviously the posting. But really, how can we create a customized solution on your behalf to best fit both your needs as well as your constituents' needs? All right, next slide, please. So we covered the first 2 Ps, the first 2 questions, which is, how do I get paid? The second one is, what is my online strategy? And the third one is, how can I reduce or eliminate costs of accepting card payments? So really, there's 3 boxes here, and I want to spend a couple minutes on each one of these just to best explain, and then we can open up for questions after one more slide. And so the first and foremost, one of the most popular questions is, how can I reduce all or eliminate merchant services fees? And the way to do that is through the service fee model. And what that looks like is, at the time of payment, your constituent would pay for the base amount. And so, for example, say they owed $100, and so they would say, I would like to pay your county $100. At that time, it would through whatever channel, all the channels we mentioned, it would prompt them and say, do you agree to pay a service fee? And that service fee on the OGS state contract with KeyBank today is 2.99%. Do you agree to pay the 2.99%? If they agree to it, they would say yes, and then it would show a total of $102.99. It would have the base amount of $100. It would have the service fee amount of $2.99, and then that total of 102.99 cents. And so the requirement, it has to be disclosed to the customer prior to the checkout, so they have that option to opt in or opt out. They have the process of the service fee. It's the separate transaction, so they would see it's different on the line item. It would be a separate line item on the receipt. And so then we would work with Visa and MasterCard to register your county as to accept these service fees. And for clarification, you cannot charge both a convenience fee and a service fee. It would have to be one or the other. And so in this model, the service fee would cover all fees. And when I say all fees, essentially you're eliminating a line item off your P&L. And so any fee associated with merchant services would be covered by this service fee. So that is how you would completely eliminate any merchant services fees, is through a service fee model. The second option is convenience fee, and how do you reduce your merchant service fee? And so you can reduce it through a convenience fee, whereas a convenience fee, it has to be a bona fide convenience for the customer outside of a traditional payment channel, and that is the exact verbiage from Visa. So I'll break that down a little bit. So the bona fide convenience is, for example, rather than having a constituent, they can make a payment and walk into your office to make a payment. That's not convenient for them. It's not offering a convenient manner. So any in-person payment cannot have a convenience fee on it. However, if you send a text for them to pay through text to pay, or you offer an online portal, those are convenient methods and convenient channels. So you would be allowed to put convenience fee. And so the county would collect all those convenience fees throughout the month. And then the following month, when the invoice arrives for those charges, all the convenience fees collected from the previous month would be applied and could offset some, even in some cases most of the charges. But typically there would be some a small amount of fees that are still owed, potentially. So really, we can customize and talk through that and determine what is the best approach for your county. But this is convenience fee is a way to reduce those fees. And then I'll walk through those parameters real quick. So it's non-face-to-face transactions, like I said. So you can't charge for in-person, only those non-in-person, because that's where you're offering the convenience. It has to be disclosed at the time of payment. So when, again, they have the opportunity to opt out if they don't want to make be charged that fee. And then the service fee, you process that convenience fee as a single transaction. And then also the fee must be applied to all payment types. And so, for example, if there's no matter what payment type you offer through that channel, whether it's ACH, electronic check, prepaid, debit, credit card, all of those, they all have to have the same fee applied to that. And again, I'm not expecting you to remember any of that. That's what we're here for. We're the experts. We can assist in developing those, but just wanted to present that information. And then the last bucket, the other costs, like what are the other things you can take a look at to reduce some of your costs? In the level 2, level 3 data, this applies to business cards and corporate cards through certain MCC codes, and the MCC stands for Merchant Category Code. So most are government-related MCCs, and it determines how much risk is associated with the credit card transaction. So, for example, most crooks or individuals, they're not going to steal a credit card number and then run to make a payment to, and I'm trying to think of something off the top of my head. They're not going to go pay their tax bill, right? Like, they're not going to steal a credit card to go make a tax payment for their property tax, because obviously you could tie it back to, oh, well, who lives at that property, right? So there's less risk there. It's not like they're purchasing a TV or something electronic, something that has value on the black market. So there's reduced risk there. So having the proper MCC is very important. And then the level 2, level 3 is really about how much information is being passed over with the transaction, because the more information that's passed through, the lower the risk is, because it's proven the validity of the transaction. And then from a security solution, are you protecting your information? Is it encrypted? So is it the information scrambled up when it's being sent from the county over to KeyBank, to process transaction? Do you have tokenization in place? And the reason those two things are important, because those reduce your PCI scope. And so the reduced PCI scope is just reducing the amount of cost and time to validate. So, for example, if we set this up in a true, how we've worked with other municipalities, I'm thinking of one we just are finishing up out in Colorado right now. It's a smaller municipality outside of Denver. They went with our solution, and we were able to reduce their SAQ, or the self-assessment questionnaire, from 330 questions all the way down to 23. And so if you think about that, it really reduces the scope and the time and effort and energy that the IT folks have to dig in and explain and ensure that all those holes are plugged for a very efficient, and it's easier to manage that one highway than multiple highways that are running all across the county. And so then that's where the last bullet point, the reduce systems and process complexity by optimizing that technical stack, right? And so if you can reduce it from 330 some questions down to those 23, then your IT folks and your security folks are going to absolutely be in favor and love that you're moving this direction. With that, the next slide, I'm going to ask Amanda to jump in here to talk a little bit about the State of New York Centralized Payment Processing Contract and give you some additional details there. Amanda?
Thanks, Rob. So Rob talked about a variety of different options for you to get paid. And we wanted to highlight or bring to your attention, some of you may be aware of this, as I know some counties are using the statewide contract, but the New York State Office of General Services has a variety of centralized contracts for goods and services. And one of those contracts is for payment processing services. And within that contract, there is 4 different contractors to choose from. And the variety of payment options that Rob has mentioned, from in-person payments to online payments, are available. So I would encourage you to visit the New York State Office of General Services Payment Processing Services Award to view the contractors that have gone through the centralized contract procurement RFP process, have been awarded the business. As I said, some of you I know are using that contract today, and it saved you both some time in a RFP process and definitely some money, as it's a centralized contract. So, you're able to take advantage of better pricing. So I would encourage you to go online and look at the parameters around the contract, the services, the contractors that are offered, and see if this may be an option that would work for your county.
Amanda, it's Brendan, and I would just offer up to the group as well, if you have a town or village or other local entity that comes to you asking what they should do for merchant services, a library, they can also take advantage of this as well. It's for any municipality in the state, any entity, any public entity. So it can be a great resource, not just at the county level, but for the local municipalities that are underneath you. So thank you, Amanda. Just wanted to mention that as well.
Thanks, dude.
So with that, go ahead, Rob. Sorry.
I was just going to turn it back to Dave to allow
for questions. Yeah. Yep. Exactly.
Okay, great. Thanks. There's a lot of information to process there. I see one question here about to go through this process to change what you're doing, that something might be heavily paper-based to what you're talking about here. I know it would vary depending on how far you go. How long does that process take to actually make the transition?
Yeah, this is Rob. So good question. Really, the transition, it varies, and obviously that's not a great answer. So I'll give you a couple examples. So really, it's identifying. The first step is the presentment piece, and how are you notifying your constituents how to pay. So that could range from continuing to send out paper invoices and providing inserts along with that to say, rather than sending the check back to the lockbox, go online and make a payment here. So that would be one option to start notifying if you establish those electronic channels and you're starting to open those up. Or the other channel, and the other option then is, how do you provide that notification? So rather than printing and mailing an invoice, how can you present it to them electronically? And so by notifying electronically or having them you can have them either opt into electronic or opt out of paper. And again, really, I know it's a little bit of a nuance there, but really how your constituents are open and how, if there's any rules or guidelines you have to follow from that perspective. But it's really establishing the channels, an electronic method, opening those up, and then begin notifying and pushing your constituents to make payments in that direction. So really, from an adoption perspective, you're going to have your early adopters in that process. I would say 20% is a solid number of adoption, just because I know for me, the first thing that I do when I receive a bill or an invoice in the mail, I look to see how can I pay this online or in an electronic method. If they don't offer an electronic channel, then I'm putting it in my stack of bills to pay, and I'll pay those at the end of the month prior to when it's done. However, if it's an electronic, if they have a channel that's open, I'll probably go ahead and make a payment right then and there, just because it'll get it off my plate and I don't even have to think about it. But if I have to manually do something, write out a check or go onto my online bill pay and type in the information, if I'm tasked in doing something like that, it's going in my stack to be paid towards the end of the month when I do all my other bills. So really, that adoption, trying to capture that 20%, 25% up front is the key. And so that conversion timeline, which is going back to the original question, what does that timeline look like? I would say once you start notifying people and they're becoming more aware of it, that 3-month period is probably a good number. So say 90 days, 120 days is when people will really start, because that first month that you notify them, you're going to get some real early adopters, but really most folks need a reminder at least 2 times or 3 times. But after that 3rd time of being told, hey, go online and pay, that's when you'll see a real migration shift.
Thank you. This is a question for, actually for me. The idea of reducing a lot of paper and its storage, just from an IT perspective, where are all these records kept? Are they on the server in your own county, or are they in the cloud, or both? Or what's the typical
good question. Yeah, so payment information that is tokenized and stored within for lack of a better term, a vault, electronic vault, that would be housed on our side of the firewalls and on our servers, and all of that information is on our side. So worst case scenario, the county would be breached or something of that nature. There's no information that could be at risk because all the sensitive information is going to be on our side.
Great. That's good for the client, clear, or the taxpayer, right? I would say, or whoever's paying the bill.
Correct.
Given where we are with the Colonial Pipeline right now, or whatever that.
Exactly.
Yep,
exactly.
Good thing. I don't have any more questions for the group. I have a kind of a housekeeping question about the slide deck, and we will be going to defer to Jeanette, but I think we'll be posting those online on the NISAC website.
That's correct, Dave.
Yeah, at this time, I don't see any other questions for Key, but I'm sure when we post this, folks will have contact information and there'll be follow-up then.
Great. Dave and NISAC, thank you guys again for having us. We really appreciate the time.
Yeah, thank you so much for doing this. It's a lot of stuff happening in this space right now, and when Brendan was talking about how he pays bills, people tell me I'm still a dinosaur because I actually like to write checks occasionally, just because I think I keep better track of my money if I'm actually looking at what I'm doing instead of putting stuff on auto pay. But I know I need to put more stuff on auto pay because it just is easier. But it's personal preference from an old guy. But anyhow. So I think at this time, I think we're wrapped that. I don't see anything else here, just double checking the question field. So I think at this time we're gonna wrap it up. And I want to again thank the speakers for presenting today, and also thank the State Comptroller's Office for partnering with us, and our affiliate, the New York State Conference of Association of Treasurers and Finance Officers. Thank you again for this session of County Finance School.